on how to attract and retain millennials. And it's really good to have with me some fantastic panelists today, Michael, Jesper, and Gavin. And while we might belong to the Gen X generation, I want to assure everyone at home that we definitely feel and most certainly look like somewhere between Gen Y and Gen X. So we can definitely represent this discussion today, I feel. How are you guys doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Very good, very good. So as a starting point to this discussion today, I want to just kind of differentiate a little bit what we are talking about here today. Because in our prep call, we had a great prep call last week, and we dissected this topic a little bit to basically conclude that what we are talking about here today is the kind of the differences in consumer behavior between the digital and the analog generation. Like how does the consumer behavior differ between these two generation, both from a product level, which is why we have Gavin here today of NetEnt, but also from an operator level of which is represented by Jesper, of course. And at the same time, we have Michael Hansson, head of CEO of Interactive, who have conducted some really interesting research in this subject as well. But before we jump into the discussion, I want to remind everyone at home as well that we are live here as well. I am keeping a hawk eye on the chat at the moment. So if there's any interesting comments or questions popping up, I will make sure to grill our panelists. So let's jump into it. Michael, I want to start with you. Just like I mentioned recently now, you have conducted some quite interesting research through Interactive, which is obviously your company, which is focusing on reactivation. And I love this for you to present your conclusions to your research a little bit on this topic, because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to put it a bit in context here, I mean, we obviously talk to thousands of customers or players each day. So obviously, this has given us the opportunity to actually gather information and to share it with our operator partners and also to the industry. So that's what we're going to do more, in the coming years now, because we feel that that's something that we really can learn more about our customers and our players. And just a starting point, what I think is important to start with is to actually, when it comes to communication, what we have seen when we talk to players is that everyone, no matter old or young, wants to somehow communicate either via email or SMS or via phone. They want to, 90% say they actually want to be updated and get updates and offers from their operator. And I think that's really interesting. Actually, 90% want to get offers and updates from their supplier. So I think that's important as a starting point. And that to me was more than I expected, honestly. And like 12% want to get information and updates weekly. And I think weekly or more often, and 78% want to get it at least monthly. So I think that's numbers that surprised me, because people actually, when we started this company, people were worried, do people even want to be contacted? But these numbers really show that people no matter via phone or SMS or email, people want to be contacted by their operator. But here comes a big difference then between millennials, Gen Zs, and older people like me, that I might not require a personalization. I got used to, when I grew up, that I'm communicated with in the fashion that the company wants to communicate with me. If they want to call me, I'm okay with that. If they want to email me, or I adjust and I adapt. Whereas what we have seen with millennials, and Jen said, is that they actually want you to adjust to them. So they want to be contacted the way they want to be contacted. And if you don't do it their way, they might not be so happy about it. And they also want to be contacted when they want to be contacted. So if you contact them the wrong time, you have to make better. You have to adjust and adapt. And that's something that we are seeing that we have to do now in the way we contact people, that we have to just adapt to them, contact them the way they want to be contacted, and when they want to be contacted. So that's a real big difference when it comes to the personal way that millennials and Gen Zs want to be contacted.
Yeah, Jesper, do you recognize this from Betsson's point of view? Is this something you agree with?
Yeah, I think this generation has more demands also because they are used to a certain way of interact with products and companies and so forth, right? So when you look at the difference between millennials and Gen X, I think when you're grown up in a more digital environment and you have some companies that really sets the preferences on e-commerce and digital. I mean, if you go to, let's say, Netflix, for example, you're expecting to get content that is tailored toward you and so forth. And if you don't get that in general from whichever product you're using online, there is a gap. And I think the millennials, they feel that more, obviously, than the older generation, though. So expectations are increasing, but that is also good. It's pushing the industry forward and drive us more and more towards a personalized experience.
Yeah, thank you, Jesper. I think it was Gavin in the prep call. You mentioned something very interesting of the new generation, which is that the new generation are prioritizing speed over trust. And as an example, you mentioned, for example, fintech companies like Revolut, which is completely taking over from the traditional banking world, for example, where a company like Revolut focuses on speed and less friction and so forth, whereas working with traditional banking is obviously perhaps more secure, but it's also less hassle. Can we draw any parallels to this phenomena into the iGaming industry, or is there anything we can learn from a company like Revolut and how consumers are interacting with these type of products?
I think, as I was saying when we spoke last week, when I started in the industry like 10 years ago on the operator side, trust was the number one criteria of brand choice, right? So if you ask customers, why did you pick this brand? Why is it your most favorite brand? The answer was always trust. And you saw in those days the likes of Ladbrokes, William Hill, those guys won on trust because they had the high street presence, right? People say, even though I'm transferring my money to the internet, I can still go down my local branch and give it to the branch manager if things go wrong, right? So that trust part was huge. And I think what's happened in the meantime is that, it's no longer even the fact that the industry calls itself iGaming or e-gaming seems old-fashioned at this stage, right? Like there is a huge cohort of our customers who are digital-first customers, because the trust piece has been established with big brands like Netflix, or from a finance perspective, Revolut, or so trust becomes less of a criteria because they just trust the mode of transacting, right? So when we move away from that, actually the product piece becomes a lot more important from a selection criteria, right? Because I think trust becomes less of the primary driver and then becomes a hygiene factor. They still want to work with brands they trust, and it doesn't mean that that's not important. But topics such as speed of payment and also the tone of voice in which you communicate, instead of going back to 10 years ago where it used to be very important that you had to trust, the communications that you sent were very much built around making the player trust the environment that they're transacting in. I think, and Jesper, we spoke about this with the brand that you've launched recently, Yalla, like how the tonality of your mark comms has changed, how even the way in which people deposit has changed. Like, I don't think that brand could have succeeded 10 years ago because the industry is a different stage of evolution,
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Jesper, can you follow up on that a little bit on your the launch of Jalla Casino, which was obviously a massive success for Betsson, and how you are specifically targeting a certain demographic with that brand?
Yeah, no, and what it really have taught us, and of course, we knew from running a range of brands, we have quite a big portfolio, but here we tailor the brand after an audience, and in particular a younger audience. And when we look at how we managed to attract this audience, it fits very well after what we were setting out to do. So the tone of voice is very different from this brand. It's speaking like a young person to young people, so to speak. So obviously the attractiveness in that segment has become really good for us, and it's working well. And it's not the type of tone of voice tonality we would use for a more established brand. If you take more, let's say, Nordic Bet, been around for a long period of time, very sports focused and so forth. So I think it again shows that you really can tailor your product and your offering in order to reach the audience that you set out for.
Mm. And do you see any difference then? Let's say, I mean, Betsson, Jesper, you've been at Betsson now for, what is it, like 8 years or something like that. Do you see any shifts in trend, let's say, from like 8 years ago when perhaps this kind of a trust was more important than speed at that time? Do you see this as a paradigm shift kind of thing?
I would say so, very much so, because if you go back in the days as well, there were fewer brands. Very few operators were doing multi-brand or having portfolios of brand. It was just standalone brands that were built up at that point. Nowadays, there are so many more brands in the market space, and most companies are having a portfolio of brands and are launching new brands all the time in order to capture new audiences in that. So it's a big change. I think you can still see some differences on a geographical level as well, not just on an age level. We see, if you take Sweden, for example, which is very digital when it comes to gaming, I would say it's 50% plus of all gaming in Sweden happens online. It's a big difference versus, for example, Italy, where it's hardly 10% in pre-COVID numbers, so to speak.
Yeah, the rest of the world is like 23% in total. Yeah.
Yes, and you can see, I mean, the trust factor from a brand perspective will always be there, but it's less important in a country than Sweden than it is in a country than Italy and so forth. So you need to obviously be very aware of also the local culture and where the country is on the digital scale, so to speak, and take that into account when you build your strategies.
Yeah, exactly, because certain demographics will have come further into this digital transformation than others, right? So in Sweden, the digital first generation, let's say, is older than what it is in Italy, which is kind of a little bit after in this digital transformation. So I think that's important to distinguish as well, right? It's not specifically, we're talking about age groups here. It's like the combination of the demographic and the age group.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting as well, though, just in terms of how that's changed, and so again, you go back 10 years, and any research or focus groups we did, the idea of a casino was something that was very James Bond-esque, right? And there was always table games led, and the slots were the things that you'd hide down the back, right? And the perception of it was cool, sophisticated. And I think, and I kind of remember Casumo coming along and going down much more entertainment-led and fun. And this was completely at odds with the older customers who saw themselves as who saw casinos as much more of a way to, it was more focused on customers who want to win. And I think what's changed as well, and you can see the way streaming has grown and the way even the product has evolved from a casino side, entertainment is becoming something that is far more the focus of what these customers want to do, right? So I do think that, but it is interesting when you marry that up with what we're saying about Sweden, that a lot of those entertainment-led brands started first in Sweden were led by Swedish founders and has kind of spread throughout Europe. And I think it is interesting to see even how the propositions have evolved over time, because go back 10 years and every casino was very much a dark themed and very table focused, and that just isn't the case anymore from a product perspective.
Yeah, true.
Gavin, sorry, Pierre, can I jump in?
Yes.
Because what Gavin just said here is very interesting, because you said that it's about fun and entertainment and not so much to win anymore, and that's especially that we focused on also asking these two demographics, millennials and Gen Zs, and then older people, why they play, and there was a big difference actually there, that the younger generation play equally for fun and to win, but the little bit older, they actually say that they actually play to win. That might be, that they don't want to admit that they think it's for fun, but nevertheless, that's their perception, right? And that would also then maybe chime into the fact that you're saying that new casinos pop up with different kind of themes and stuff. So that's more to the fun side, because you want to see new stuff, you want to have fun. But if you want to play, like you mentioned NordicBet, which we are working with for like 10 years, and it's a really hardcore, great sports focus. And that's also something we saw in the surveys now, that the older generation say more. They have an uneven pie chart, so to say. So they have a very dominant sports side. Almost 50% say that, where do you get your most fun? They say sports. Whereas the younger generation have a much more diverse pie chart, where you have like Netflix 20 or 25%, you have online gaming 15%, you have sports 25%. So there is a difference also. I'm not saying sports is going away. I'm just saying sports is getting some tough competition from other products. So that's really rhymes with what you said there, Gavin. The entertainment versus to win factor.
You're getting compliments here in the chat, Michael, from Beatrice Orana. She's saying that you have some really interesting thoughts here on your statistics. You're kind of, I like how we are chiming in here. It's like I don't know if you guys saw the follow-up to the election last week, the James King of CNN. He was like the expert of the math, like he knew everything about everything. I like, Michael, how
he's amazing.
Yeah, I like how you have perfect knowledge in this demographics. But I actually want to follow up on this, Michael, with you, because have you seen any as well differences from the years that you have been building Interactive in the way that you reactivate customers? Did you have a great script that worked 10 years ago that maybe doesn't work right now? Or is it fairly the same, so to say, throughout the years?
Honestly, the script has never been, it's never been set in stone. It's always been, the person that works for us has to learn the basics, but then it's so much about listening. So it evolves, when you listen, you have to adjust and adapt. And I think if I see a difference, well, there is a difference between the more traditional sports brands and the newer, cooler, more fun brands that we actually might get this, get the customer back more easily on a more fun brand, because we can offer something extra or whatever. But when you get the customer back and you try to, show them what's going on the site and updates and stuff, and when you get them back to a more traditional site and they relive that experience, then they tend to stay very long, as opposed to when you have a more cool, fun brand, then the loyalty might not be as strong. So I think there's a difference there as well, which is obvious. If one group, the younger people, want to have more fun and jump around and try new things, obviously they can't be as loyal to everyone. Mm-hmm. So I think that's obvious, but that we see a difference there between customers and customers.
Yeah. We have a question here from Michael John Holden, who's asking, is the future of iGaming for millennials combining traditional gaming elements with modern mobile video gaming styles? And perhaps that's a question for Gavin, obviously on the product side.
So I've always been very wary of this because so it's absolutely clear it's seeped into all sorts of from loot boxes through to the way people play in video games, right? So I don't think it hasn't flowed the other way yet, right? So at the moment, gambling is spilling over into gaming, and I think regulators are very aware of this. But what it does mean is that the way people get educated about gambling is very different than when I was in a betting shop age 12, pretending to be 18, betting on the Grand National. It's a very different experience now. Now kids are experiencing gambling for the first time through playing FIFA, right? So I don't know how that necessarily plays out in the next 5 to 10 years, but there's some things that we can see, the stuff like Evolution are doing around game shows, etc. So bringing in casual elements and kind of, let's say, as I said, the move from the very traditional table focus to more the intersection between entertainment and gambling is happening and is already happening. But it's going to be very interesting to see that the generation now that first exposure, as I said, is loot boxes or betting on skins betting, and even how they gamble on that is very different too. So if you look at, the most prominent form of roulette in the US is actually 14-number roulette betting on CSGO, right? And the margins on it are fantastic. If I can get roulette customers that are, 20% margin, that's amazing. So I definitely think the player behavior will evolve, but I don't think I'm personally not very big on skill-based gambling as it currently exists today. I don't think that's what it's going to look like, but definitely the product will evolve.
Yeah, fair enough. So
we have
2 minutes left, Michael. 1.5 minutes actually. So quick comment.
Yeah. 10 seconds comment. I was surprised to see that so few, like we're talking a couple of percent, said that, what they like to do the most is to play like video games, or like I thought that there would be bigger overlap between online gaming and that actually prefer, to play some games and stuff. But I didn't see that. So just that comment regarding, video and so on.
Thanks, Michael. Last super quick question for today. In the words of Jesper Kärrbrink, he says that the only people who think that they can know the future is the stock analysts. But we will try to predict the future here quickly. Jesper, 2030, what is like a typical, how do you succeed as an operator for the next generation? You have 15 seconds.
Stock analysts are usually wrong. Than this year at least, though. So I think we are all in a very good spot. We are in the digital gaming industry. It's going to continue to grow, and we should be very glad that we are in such an amazing industry. Actually, it looks really good for us the coming years.
Great. And Gavin, on a product level, what is the hottest trend 2030?
2030. We're all going to be living on Mars, aren't we?
Betting on Mars.
Look, I think the developments in video streaming, the developments in batteries on devices and stuff, it means that I think the hyper real gambling experiences rather than simulated gambling experiences will become more of a thing, right? So I think that's a trend that we'll watch and be very meaningful in 2030.
Great, thank you. And Michael, last 10 seconds of you. Player behavior.
Yes, I think just adjust and adapt to your customer. That's the only thing.
That's the key to success. Guys, thank you so much for chiming in today. It's a pleasure. Let's do it again soon. I think this 25 minutes is too short for this topic, but it's been fantastic. And thank you everyone who participated in the chat as well. And I wish you all a fantastic day.